Hello and welcome back to the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. I'm Steven Serda, joined as always by my guy, Rocky Magana. Rocky, the Kansas City Chiefs advance to the divisional round to take on the Buffalo Bills next Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Kansas City time after an absolutely dominating win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. We got a ton to talk to about this game. Obviously, the Chiefs started out slow. It was a sluggish start, and what inevitably wound up being a weird play where Darrell Williams fumbled the football, and it was a handoff from McCole Hardman for whatever reason. They were just trying to get something going early offensively in this game, and then TJ Watt returned it for a touchdown, and that woke the Chiefs up, Rocky. It finally woke the offense up in a way I feel like we've been chasing all season long. Like we've been chasing this kind of perfect, efficient performance. I know they dominated the Steelers just a few weeks ago, winning that game 36-10, but it felt like even in that game where they were totally in control the entire time, like they left things on the table, right? Like there was some miscues and some missed throws and stuff by Patrick Mahomes in that game. And it feels like we've been chasing this kind of like Chiefs-esque offensive explosion all season long. And you get it in the playoffs. It's an incredible feeling. And you can't come away from this game not being thrilled. Obviously, you want to see them dominate, but it's against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we talked about it all week long. Like this is what you should do against this team. You should just go out there and try to score 100 points and totally dominate them. So there's nothing left to doubt about this team headed into the divisional round. And the debate about, whether the Steelers should even be in the playoffs, like we don't need to get into that. They're not a good offensive team. They're not a good football team. This is what the Kansas City Chiefs should have done in this game. And it took them a few series to get going, but once they got going, they absolutely dominated. So we're on to Buffalo, Rocky. Let's go. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it, man. Yeah, we're on to Buffalo. And, the Chiefs came out and it looked like they were trying to play things a little close to the vest in the beginning, like almost like Andy Reid didn't want to show all of his cards in this game unless he had to. And then that interception by Mahomes happens, and we have a player who's going to be doing no-look passes like that. Things are going to happen. He needs to check his trailing players, though, in those plays to make sure that doesn't happen. But it seemed like at that moment, Andy Reid and Mahomes and some of the other stars on the team just said, all right, enough's enough. We need to stop playing with our food and just, put this mouse down and just move on to next week. And that's exactly what they did. When they decided to flip the switch and turn it on, the thoroughbreds came out and they ran rampant up and down the field. And I mean, hats off to the defense, for, dominating a very, very bad offense early on and covering up for that slow start, because the last thing you want to do in any playoff game is let a bad team think that they have a reason, that they deserve to hang around and that they're in the same class as you, because the Steelers team is not in the same class as this Chiefs team, and they had no business hanging around in the first quarter until the Chiefs finally decided to just put their pedal down and just take off.
So we've seen this team have their ups and downs offensively all season long. But one thing that they have been doing lately is starting off well and finding a way to score on that opening drive. And the Andy Reid opening scripts have been just money for this team kind of down the stretch this season. But they started slow and just stagnant and felt like they were kind of trying to play things safe. And we talked about that a little bit on Show and BK this week, where it felt like coming into this game, you knew you could dominate the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you kind of assume the Chiefs, maybe we want to play it a little safe going into this one, knowing that we're likely taking on the Buffalo Bills, who were absolutely lights out against the New England Patriots on Saturday and looked absolutely incredible. Josh Allen just went nuts. Their offense looked totally unstoppable. And so you think coming into this game, maybe they should save something. Maybe they should play it safe a little bit, knowing that you can beat this Pittsburgh Steelers team with a C-level effort. And I think that's kind of how they started this football game, those first few drives, thinking, we don't need to totally unwrap this thing. We don't need to bust everything out. Let's just kind of try to play it safe, make sure we get a couple touchdown lead, and we'll go from there. And we'll leave it at that. And then the TJ Watt touchdown happens, and it's like Andy and Pat were like, all right, screw it. Let's go. Let's just uncork this thing and let's put up points and let's score and let's just leave no doubt in anybody's mind. And that's exactly what they did. Like Patrick Mahomes threw 5 touchdown passes in a record-breaking amount of time in an NFL football game, not just a playoff game, like any NFL football game ever. Patrick Mahomes threw 5 touchdown passes in a faster amount of time than anybody has ever done that. And that's what the Chiefs offense, like, I feel like that's what we've been chasing all season with this team, because we're like, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Hall of Famers, improved offensive line. And it doesn't really matter who's at running back. We'll talk about Jerick McKinnon, who was absolutely fantastic tonight. But this was finally the performance I feel like we've been looking for throughout the entire regular season. And even though it was against an inferior opponent in the Pittsburgh Steelers, I just needed to know that it was there. I just needed to know that they could flip the switch, like we talked about a ton in the week leading up to this game, that they could just do it when they wanted to do it, and they did it. And so now I've got all kinds of confidence in this team that I didn't necessarily have coming into the playoffs, because we've been kind of chasing this performance all season. So I'm happy that Andy just said, screw it. Tight end touchdown pass, Nick Allegretti touchdown. Let's just go. Let's just put up 100 points and not worry about it. We'll figure out what we need to do next week once we get back into the practice facility, and we'll figure out what we need to do against Buffalo tomorrow.
Well, yeah, and when he decided to open up the playbook, he didn't just crack the playbook open. I mean, he opened the whole dang thing and just said, all right, here we go. Travis Kelce's going to throw a touchdown pass. We're going to dial up the Joe Valerio special from back in the Schottenheimer days, and we're going to throw a pass to the big man, Nick Allegretti. Even the underarm pass to Jerick McKinnon had a little bit of, misdirection, in it. You think at some point the teams are going to start looking for that underhand pass, but it fools them every single time. Like Andy just has a knack for when to dial up that play. And, with Mahomes, it's one of those things where when you have a guy who's a championship caliber player, and we're not talking about a guy who's wins like one championship. We're talking about these type of guys. So the Joe Montanas, the Peyton Mannings, in other sports like the Michael Jordans, the LeBron Jameses, those types of guys, they may make mistakes early in the game, but when it's time to put the team on their back and just say, okay, it's done. We're done playing around. We're not going to let these guys get any closer to us. We're not going to let them think that they deserve to play with us. I'm ending it. I'm just ending this right now, and I'm just going to put them down. That's what those guys do, and that's what exactly the type of performance that Patrick Mahomes had today was one of those types of games where when you look back, on postseason play, 10 years from now, when he's ending, getting towards the end of his career, you're going to be saying like, man, you remember in 2021, when he came out and threw 5 touchdown passes, and just put the team on his back and just said, you know what, Big Ben, I'm sorry. Like, I got to end your career right now. Like, respect, namaste, go with God into the sunset, but your career is over, bro. I'm sorry. It's time to put you down. You're an old horse.
So, got this comment from a listener, and I've got this play queued up from Travis Kelce, and I tweeted out immediately after this, like, oh, Andy's just being rude now. Like Andy's just being awful when you tee up a tight end touchdown pass in a playoff game against an offense that can't do anything against you, and a team that probably shouldn't be in the playoffs and wouldn't if they didn't expand the playoff field. But this play was fantastic. I kind of wish they would have saved it for next week against Buffalo, but it was still fantastic to see. So let's check out Travis Kelce throwing his first playoff touchdown.
Mahomes becomes a decoy. Kelce's going to throw a touchdown. Kelce to Pringle.
What I love about that play, Rocky, is that Mahomes was there as a total decoy. And I would imagine when they go into practice and they do that play, Andy Reid's like, don't ever throw it at Pat. Don't ever throw that football at Pat. But he was wide open and he was saying, I'm open. I need that ball. He wanted it bad. And I kind of wish Kelce would have thrown it to him a little bit, but still incredible play call. Andy Reid was just totally in his bag tonight. After those first few series, once the Chiefs said, screw it, we're rolling. We're not playing around with this anymore. We are trying to score points and end this thing early. They did that. And it was really nice to see because we haven't seen that from the Chiefs in a while, I feel like, this season. Like, even during their big offensive performances throughout the regular season, you still came out of those games thinking like there was more there. There was more they could have done. There was, a third down drop or a miscue by Pat, or, he just overthrew somebody who was wide open that could have been a long touchdown. All the explosive plays were there tonight. And it helps going against an inferior opponent. And this certainly isn't like the Pittsburgh Steelers defense of old or anything like that. Like, their defense has been torched by a lot of offenses this season. But this is the type of performance I think that we needed to see from the Kansas City Chiefs, because we've talked about it all year. The defense improving is incredible. And it's helped put you, I think, on a different trajectory than where you were early in the season when the defense was the worst defense in the NFL. It's certainly much better than that, even if it's still a little bit somewhere in between there. But they're going to win championships because of the offense. And so to see them finally get into the postseason and say, okay, we're turning this thing on, we're kicking it into another gear, and to know that they could still do that, because we talked a ton about how defenses are playing them this season and how the lack of explosive plays just haven't been there. Once they started going and once they started dialing things up, it was explosive play, like Hall of Fame caliber plays to Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, like the guys that you need to win you another championship and get you to another Super Bowl. Those guys showed up and they were huge impact plays, and Andy Reid was just totally feeling himself tonight. I'm so happy for Chiefs fans. I'm happy for Kansas City. I'm happy for this Chiefs team just in general, that we finally got to see them just open this thing up and say, screw it, we're just trying to outscore you and run you out of the building before halftime.
I mean, you almost got to think that on the sideline when Andy Reid is like dialing up these plays, that he's just listening to Lizzo in his headphones the entire time, just flipping his hair back and feeling himself as he's dialing up these trick plays, to score touchdowns. And I'm not gonna lie, Steven, I wish they would have thrown it to Mahomes on that play. Yeah, is it the smart play to throw it to Pringle? Yes. Was Mahomes open? Yes. Is that a little bit too much like the Philly special? Probably. Yes. That being said, I want to see Mahomes get a touchdown reception there. He was wide open. Is he going to catch it? Who knows? It was like, I'm not going to sit here and nitpick and say that Travis Kelce made the wrong decision because he threw it to Pringle. But let's be honest, we all kind of wanted to see Patrick Mahomes catch a touchdown pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty cool to see Travis Kelce throw a touchdown pass. But yeah, it would have been cool to see him throw that to Patrick Mahomes. Although I feel like the Nick Allegretti touchdown was like that was what we got, like, as fans. That was, we love offensive lineman touchdowns. And so that was Andy Reid dialing something up. And, Andy tries to kind of remain reactionless on the sidelines during these things, but that's the thing. And if you guys are listening to us on our live stream or on the podcast page, you can listen to our post-game press conferences immediately following this episode. We'll have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and whoever they throw up at the podium after the Chiefs' big win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this is that kind of touchdown pass where Andy Reid, when he gets asked about it in his post-game press conference, he's going to have a little smirk when he talks about it. He's going to have a little grin, because he's going to be like, yeah, I've been saving that one. We've been practicing that one with Allegretti for a while.
Well,
Mahomes will keep it himself for the moment and then throw for a touchdown. And there is Allegretti, who comes in and lines up as an eligible receiver.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Andy Reid's a big guy. Andy Reid loves big guy love, given the opportunities to these guys. You got to imagine that in his playing career, Andy Reid probably wishes that he had himself as a coach and he could have had that play run to him at some point. And he's probably thinking to himself, you know what, Nick, you bring your work pail to practice every single day. You do everything we ask you to do. We're just going to give you a touchdown today, Nick. You've earned it. You've done great things for this team, and I mean, I don't believe that this is all we've seen from the Andy Reid playbook. I mean, like, I don't think that he runs that play because he didn't have to. He didn't have to run that play. He couldn't help himself, but he didn't have to run that play today. And so there has either A, he's setting up something else for next week, like a different play off of that same formation, or B, he's got something better in store that he didn't feel like he had to keep that in his back pocket because the game was already in hand at that point.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Jerick McKinnon for a second here, where McKinnon was fantastic tonight. It's his second consecutive game where he's had a high impact for the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and he's just been fun. Like, it feels like he's adding an element to the offense that I feel like we haven't had in a while with the Kansas City Chiefs, where he's legitimately, they're dialing up schemed passing plays for Jerick McKinnon, and then he's dynamic in the running game. And coming out of training camp, headed into the regular season, a lot of us thought Jerick McKinnon was going to have a big role on this offense because of his versatility as a running back. Now, I think if Clyde is healthy, Clyde is still undisputably the lead running back for this offense, and I would hope that some of those schemed passing plays Jerick McKinnon is getting, we would see Clyde in that role, because I think that Clyde can be utilized that way. The Chiefs just haven't done it that much, and I think that they are saving some of that for the postseason. But Jerick McKinnon's been fantastic, and Darrell Williams was clearly not healthy tonight. He was questionable coming into the contest, and everything kind of leading up to kickoff. Once he was active, it was like, okay, well, Darrell Williams should have a role in this game. But leading up to it, he was limited all week in practice, and it seemed like there wasn't a ton of optimism around him even playing in this football game. And so he was active, and he had that fumble on that McCole Hardman handoff. And then I don't even know if he got another snap the rest of the game. I don't recall seeing him the rest of the football game, but he didn't need to play because Jerick McKinnon was being so effective. And so now if you get Clyde in this divisional matchup against the Buffalo Bills, if you get Darrell and he's healthy, and everything that Jerick McKinnon's doing, like, all of a sudden, Andy Reid, you talked about everything that he did creatively, offensively tonight. And I understand the worry that, like, the Chiefs kind of reached too far into the bag against an inferior opponent, and you're taking on this Buffalo Bills team that has been absolutely lights out lately and just absolutely dominant against the New England Patriots on Saturday. But all of a sudden you're talking about, like, you got 3 running back options that you can scheme up a lot of stuff for if you're Andy Reid. You got Travis Kelce, you got Tyreek Hill. Byron Pringle had a massive game tonight, stepping into that third wide receiver role like we've seen him do all season long. And Demarcus Robinson had a nice game. McCole Hardman had a nice game. Like, everybody performed today. And I understand that Buffalo Bills defense is better. They're a better football team overall, top to bottom. Buffalo is going to be a problem. Like, this is going to be a really tough football game to try and advance to another AFC title game. But man, if Andy's going to be like this in the playoffs, if Andy's going to be dialing things up like this, it's hard for me to think there's a team in the AFC right now that can really challenge the Chiefs in a real legitimate way.
Yeah, I mean, if Andy's going to call plays like this, and Pat's going to make throws like this, and the offense and the other, the outlier players, on the peripheral, the Pringles, the Robinsons, the Hardmans are going to step up and make plays like this, then the Chiefs are a hard out. We've always said that the Chiefs are a hard out because their offense, if it comes alive, can score on you at will. And that's exactly what happened today. The offense came alive and scored on them at will. I don't ever want to see McCole Hardman running a Wildcat ever again, for as long as I am. I don't ever need to see the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands like that, unless maybe you're giving it to Travis Kelce. And if you really have to run that Wildcat, then do it with Byron Pringle or even Jerick McKinnon. I mean, Jerick McKinnon is the most dynamic athlete we have in the running back room. I'm not saying that he's a better all-around running back than Clyde, but as far as just a dynamic athlete, his entire career, Jerick McKinnon has been a very dynamic, top tier athlete at his position. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. If Jerick McKinnon's been healthy his whole career, his career has a whole lot different trajectory than it is right now, where he's on a 1-year prove-it deal, and injured for most of the year. When he's healthy, Jerick McKinnon is a top tier running back in this league. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field, And moving forward, if he's on the field for this entire playoff run, then that's another weapon, that the Chiefs have. That's a mismatch. You don't want a linebacker trying to cover Jerick McKinnon out of the backfield. That's a mismatch. 7 days a week. All day long. I would just pick on that. And we saw today the Chiefs used Jerick McKinnon as a mismatch in the passing game, and it worked like a charm. And so I would ride that hot hand, throughout this playoff run. If Clyde's back, that's great. But this gives us an option where there's no need to rush him back if he's not 100%. You know what I mean? You don't have to start him next week if he's only going to be 70% and not at full capacity.
Well, and if they can get all of these running backs on the field, Buffalo now heading into next week, Buffalo is going to be dialing some things up defensively for Jerick McKinnon. Like heading into this game, they're going to look at the impact that he had in this game and say, okay, we got to stop Jerick McKinnon because the way they're utilizing him. So that gives the Chiefs more room to, if they have a healthy Clyde and a healthy Darrell, okay, we can do all kinds of stuff with these guys now. We can put 2 or 3 of these guys on the field at the same time and have the defense really questioning what we're trying to do here. Another thing that I think was huge for this offense in this game was that, Tyreek Hill didn't have a massive impact, but he had the long touchdown. And I think that's huge for this team. Just having him in there and having him actually be able to catch one of those long balls from Mahomes for a score. And he had the touchdown a few plays before the Najee Harris fumble that was overturned. They said he was down at the goal line. So Mahomes went back out and said, okay, I got to get Tyreek a touchdown here. So this was the Patrick Mahomes touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill.
Position. 4-man rush. Mahomes, he's going deep downfield, wide open. Kelce's going to take it all the way.
Well, that's a Patrick Mahomes touchdown pass to Travis Kelce, which was also fantastic.
That was awesome. That was a great touchdown pass.
Yeah. Travis Kelce, brilliant. But anyways, Tyreek Hill it was just good to see him get that because he's been banged up down the stretch. He missed practice time because he was on the COVID list. And so the first matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was on a limited snap count. I don't know how COVID actually affected him personally, but obviously it was an issue heading into that game and the Chiefs were worried about his snaps. So he didn't play that much in that game. And then down the stretch, Tyreek Hill had the heel injury and we've just seen him kind of be quiet over the last 3 weeks to a month of the season. He's going to be huge in the playoffs for them. Obviously, it goes without me saying that Tyreek Hill is going to have a massive impact on this offense, but they need Tyreek Hill. They need Travis Kelce, like we just saw that fantastic touchdown. They need those guys. They need their Hall of Fame caliber players to go on another Super Bowl run. These things aren't easy, Rocky. We're talking about trying to do this for a third straight time. They need those Hall of Fame caliber players to be healthy and ready to make plays. So it was fantastic just to see both of them be able to do that tonight.
Oh, it was great to see both of them do that tonight, especially, Tyreek Hill's got a lot of flack this season about, he's not the same explosive player that he used to be. Well, he's getting bracketed, almost nonstop, and they're playing cover 2 zone on him. So of course he's taking the underneath, routes and catches. And it was good just to see him take the top off of somebody. I think that it reminded a lot of people, hopefully, around the league that he still is who he's always been. And you got to respect that speed or else he's going to kill you on one play. If you don't, you have to bracket him. And if you bracket him, then what are you going to do about Kelce? You know what I mean? If you're bracketing Tyreek Hill, then you're leaving an underneath route, to D-Rob or Pringle or Hardman or something like that. And so even when Hill's not catching the ball, he's having an impact, on the opposing team's defense. But that being said, yeah, I mean, it's hard to build a dynasty. It's hard to be one of those teams that goes to, like you said, 3 straight championship games. And when you look back on history and you name players who were a part of that, they're guys who show up in the playoff runs, So, without a question, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, that's your nucleus on offense. And they have to be the ones that you ride, because they're the ones that are most reliable.
if you guys are listening to us on the podcast, I do want to let you know we will not have an Arrowhead drive tomorrow morning. Normally, we do them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to make sure you're up to date on all the Chiefs news that you need. But we will not have one since we had a late night game. We're going to let this post-game show carry over. So we hope that you guys listen to that. Please subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. But no Arrowhead drive tomorrow morning. We will have it for you first thing Wednesday morning as we're getting ready for the Chiefs to take on the Buffalo Bills on Sunday evening. But I want to talk about this defense for a second before we get out of here. They were lights out again tonight, and the first time the Chiefs played the Buffalo Bills was in week 5 of the season. They lost that game 38-20. Josh Allen had a monster football game and just carved up the Chiefs defense. That was obviously a long time ago and a very different Chiefs defense. That was when the Chiefs defense was on pace to be the worst defense in NFL history through 5 weeks of the season. Then they acquired Melvin Ingram and this thing really turned around. And a key note here that we haven't even mentioned, Rashad Fenton was added to the injury report late today and then wound up not playing in this game. Rashad Fenton's obviously been a huge cornerback for them, huge playmaker for them all season long. So we hope that he is healthy heading into this game because they're going to need him against the Buffalo Bills. But this Chiefs defense is very different than the defense that they faced all the way back in week 5 of the NFL season. And they were good tonight. They did let up a little bit down the stretch, but it's like when you put up that many points, you're like, I don't even care. Like, whatever. Let the Steelers get some garbage time touchdowns. It's fine. It doesn't affect me any unless you're gambling on the game or something like that. They were putting plenty of pressure on Ben Roethlisberger all night. It helps that Ben Roethlisberger's out here throwing balloons downfield and they just have no velocity and they take forever to get there. So that's a big help to the defensive backs. That's obviously going to be very different with Josh Allen. Josh Allen can throw the football just like Patrick Mahomes can. He can throw it off platform, every different angle you can possibly think of. And this is setting up to possibly be like one of the best games of the NFL playoffs. Divisional round is the best round of the playoffs, hands down, Rocky, because we've eliminated those wild card teams that were fringe playoff teams to begin with. And the Philadelphia Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers did not make a good case for them even being in the playoffs today. But we've eliminated those bad teams that barely snuck into the playoffs. And now we're talking about teams that are championship caliber football teams when we head into the divisional round. And that's what you're getting in the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are that team where you've got all your doubters for the Tennessee Titans who wound up with the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. I'm a Tennessee Titans doubter. I don't believe in the Titans whatsoever, even if they get Derrick Henry back. I just do not believe in them offensively. It comes down to this game between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion, on who is going to win the AFC and go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's Bills or Chiefs. I'm a Tennessee Titans doubter as well. Never have been a believer in them. Prove me wrong at some point, and then maybe I'll change my mind. But history has proven that when given the opportunity, the Tennessee Titans are going to choke in the playoffs, and they're not going to play well. But that being said, the Bills are a whole different beast. The Bills' offensive line is 10 times better than the Steelers' offensive line. The Steelers' offensive line at times is Swiss cheese, which hats off to the defense. You know, they ran through those Swiss cheese holes and got sacks and put pressure on Ben Roethlisberger all day long, you know, but they're going to have a harder time. We're going to need Melvin Ingram and Chris Jones and Frank Clark really to put pressure on Josh Allen, because Josh Allen is prone to making mistakes if you can put consistent pressure on him. He's athletic. He can get outside the pocket. He can make all the throws, but he also is a bit of a gambler, and he'll try to fit balls in that he can't, you know, when he's under pressure. And so you got it all starts with the front four next weekend. Hats off to our secondary today, even though, you know, Ben Roethlisberger was throwing balloons out there, you know, and it was, I mean, they were bad. I mean, Ben, God bless you, but you should have retired after the end of last year. But our cornerbacks had a better read on the ball than the Steelers wide receivers did today on anything that was over 10 yards. So I thought Travarius Ward and L'Jarius Sneed They played lights out, for 99% of the game.
So I think there's a case to be made that the Bills and the Chiefs are both really, really similar football teams where, this Buffalo Bills team lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars at one point this season, and their offense looked bad at times this year, but they've both turned things on at the right time. So this is going to be a powerhouse football game. It's going to be between two of the NFL's best young quarterbacks. And Brian Dable is a fantastic offensive coordinator who's probably going to be a head coach after this season. And Andy Reid. They're two of the most creative offensive play callers in the game today. So this is setting up to be a total powerhouse matchup between the Chiefs and the Bills. I'm excited for it, Kansas City. I know you guys are excited for it. I know Rocky's excited for it. We're going to have you covered all week long at arrowheadpride.com. So make sure you are tuned into the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing. If you leave us a 5-star review, Pete Sweeney will read those 5-star reviews on Tuesday's editor show. So make sure you get that taken care of. If you want your review read by Pete Sweeney, make sure you're locked in tomorrow afternoon. We will have Out of Structure with Ron Kopp and Matt Stagner. They will break down the entire Chiefs performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They will also take your questions in their Chiefs mailbag. Again, no Arrowhead Drive tomorrow morning, but we will have it available for you again early Wednesday morning. Make sure that is there and ready for you on your drive to work. Please just stay locked in. We got you covered at Arrowhead Pride. Please follow Rocky Magana on Twitter. I'm Steven Serda. That's where you can find me. Let's all go have a drink. Let's celebrate. The Chiefs survived in advance. It's on to the divisional round against the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk to you soon, Chiefs fans.